And so when I read his biography first, that automatically I felt like, well, there is something else that unites us in our pursuit for justice and liberty for human beings. So without further delay, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you. Congratulations on your leadership. Every time I come back, you have some new role, and thank you for all your service. I appreciate it very much. Mayor Khan, thank you for your very clear statement against bigotry. I appreciated that. Councilor Hill, congratulations. I love your passion for accountability and appreciate what you're doing for the community. Of course, to my great colleagues. First, I would just say, because Maggie Goodlander was in my district, and afterwards, all I got was, can we support Maggie? How do we support Maggie? She made such a great impression. So I say to her mom, Betty, I said, the sky's the limit for Maggie. And like a mom, totally on message. Well, she's just focused on her work today. So you've got a mother who's incredible. But Maggie is one of my favorite people in Congress. She is someone who is an ideas person, a substance, an intellectual, and we need more public servants like her. And let's give her a round of applause. And I just want to say this about Jake Sullivan, who helped us in ending the war in Yemen. If there's one speech that you were going to read in the Biden administration, read the speech that Jake Sullivan gave about the economic case for industrial policy. It's a fantastic speech. I appreciate your being here, Jake. Thank you. My colleague Chris Pappas, there's Chris. Chris, thank you for, I've had dinner at his restaurant. I appreciate so much your incredible hard work. You're working across the aisle. You're getting things done for people. You've just been an incredible colleague, an incredible leader, and I'm grateful for your friendship and grateful for all the work that we've done together. Thank you very, very much. And I appreciate, look, one of the great things about a party is to recognize new voices and new stories, and I appreciated, Krishma, your remarks and your story, and I appreciate that our party is big enough, diverse enough, open enough to hear all the different perspectives. I was talking to Josh at my table, Josh Shapiro, and he said, Joe, not Josh. I know Josh too. Great guy. And he said, we're exhausted. We have been embarrassed. We've been eroded in our spirit, in our confidence. And where do we go from here? How did we get here? How did we get here and where do we go? And it struck me and it resonated with me. He said in the 1960s it seemed that the king, quote, that the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice had a truth to it. There was an optimism. And you know why it resonated with me is because that's when my parents came to the United States in the 1960s. John F. Kennedy had said, we're going to go to the moon. This was the place to be. It was humming with activity, with industry. We were leading the world, the moral exemplar of the world. In India, they were celebrating John F. Kennedy. My grandfather, as Mohammed said, had been in jail for 4 years as part of Gandhi's independence movement, fighting for Indian independence. It was that movement that inspired Reverend Lawson and John Lewis. Mordecai Johnson was the president of Howard, and he was speaking in Philadelphia after he had been to India, and there was a young preacher there, Dr. King, and he talked about Gandhi's independence movement. And Dr. King, from that day, carried with him a Bible and the Gandhi reader everywhere he went. And the civil rights movement led not just to the Voting Rights Act, which, by the way, they're trying to undermine today. 100 years it took for Jim Clyburn to get that seat in South Carolina. 1895 to 1992, not a single black congressman in South Carolina because of the way they drew the lines. It took the Civil Rights Act, it took the 1982 Voting Rights Amendment to that, and that's what they're trying to do away. But one of the other things that came out of the Civil Rights Act is the Immigration Reform Act. And that allowed my parents to come to the United States. They couldn't come from India or Africa before the Civil Rights Movement, before the Immigration Reform Act. And then I was born in Philadelphia in 1976. So my wife's not here. Every time I tell that, she said, you had nothing to do with that. But it is still true. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, in Bucks County, in a community that was largely white. Someone else mentioned to me, they said, there are not many people of color here. I said, you know, I grew up in Bucks County, it was 99% white. And I had teachers who believed in me. And I had Little League coaches who believed in me. I told this that at St. Anselm, I couldn't hit for anything. But they'd say, he plays. Hey, yeah, every now and then someone would say, I'll go back to India. But, you know, those were just junior high kids. But that was not my experience. They said, Ro, you can do anything in this country. You could be anything. And I was naive enough to believe them. And I still am. I still am. You see, my hope comes from my life experience. This guy, this person, the grandson of Indian immigrants, of an Indian freedom fighter, son of immigrants, growing up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, to a middle-class life of Hindu faith, ends up being elected at the age of 40 to represent the most innovative, economic, wealth-generating district in the history of humanity in Silicon Valley. How does that happen in America? You see, the sad thing is that Trump has come with all this fear. It's not just the lawlessness. It's not just the degradation of the institutions. It's the chipping away of the American spirit, of our capacity to understand what this nation is and is capable of being. And he's done it, and I wish it was as simple as saying, we're going to fight Trump, and we're going to point out that he's getting a Qatari jet, and that he's getting billions of dollars from UAE for his cryptocurrencies. I wish it was that simple, and that he's riding roughshod on the Constitution. But my friends, we're up against something deeper and harder than Donald Trump. We're up against what he represents: the loss of hope, despair. David Brooks called it nihilism, a loss of belief in what President Biden used to say, the possibility of the country. That's what he represents. Because so many people felt that they were so shafted, that they were so humiliated, that they were so left out of the American picture that they just said, destroy it all. We don't care. Take it down. You want to take down the experts? You want to just have people who just say no to science, no to mRNA? Nothing to do with COVID. mRNA has to do with vaccines for cancer. Just no. Break it all down. Break down the universities, break down the institutions, break down anyone who has an expert. And you know why? Partly why? Because the system wasn't working for so many people. 5 companies of over $1 trillion in my district in a 50-mile radius. Apple, Google, Tesla, Nvidia, Broadcom. $14 trillion of wealth in one district. More wealth than we've ever produced in the history of the world. East of the Mississippi, there's one company, even close, JP Morgan, that's $800 billion. Nothing else. And you have stories of people in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. They say, we built America. Rose family just got here. They didn't build the steel that won World War II. They didn't scale the cliffs of Normandy. They didn't fight in the Revolution. They just got here. We built America. What happened to us? Go to Johnstown. Go to Lorraine. Go to Milwaukee. We've been upstate to Berlin. And see what they feel. It's not just the lack of jobs. People say, oh, Ro, it's just about economics. No, it's about culture. It's about hope. It's about their sense of the American dream. They don't see what my parents saw, that their kids would have a better life. They see their kids leaving. They see this country having said, you're going to get tech jobs, you're going to get job training, you're going to get industry. And no one did anything. Those communities have gotten worse. I was in Galesburg. President Obama spoke about Galesburg in his 2004 keynote address. He said Maytag was offshored, and the jobs had all left. And we were going to rebuild it. I saw President Obama a few years ago. I said, Mr. President, they remember when you came. They remember you didn't have a press release. They remember you sat down and had beer, and you didn't do a press release afterwards. They still talk about that 25 years later. But you know what the bad news is? Galesburg today is worse. It's worse than we gave that keynote speech in 2004. People say, what does the Democratic Party stand for? I believe we stand very simply for one simple proposition. We need to bridge the economic divide in this country, and we need to make our top mission the economic success and independence of every family and every community in America. That should be the Democratic mantra. Lincoln said, a nation can't survive half slave and half free. I don't believe a nation can thrive half prosperous and half in decline. Now, what does Donald Trump do? He offers fear. It's Khanna's family's fault. It's the immigrants' fault. It's Mexico's fault. It's China's fault. It's Harvard's fault. It's the Fed's fault. It's the scientists' fault. That's all he knows. People see through it. They say, well, why don't you see through it? Of course they see through it. But it's better than what they've had. They say the stuff that we've had isn't working. Change it. And it's for us not to reciprocate in kind with the same kind of derision and name-calling. It's for us to say, we hear you, we see you, and here is a vision forward. Not a 19th century vision, as Congressman Pappas said. Not a 1980s guy. That's what Donald Trump is, a 1980s guy, 19th century policies. And you know what? If he was born in the 19th century with James Polk and thought like conquering Canada was going to build wealth, you know, that was that time. And that massive tariffs would build wealth. Take it from the guy who represents Silicon Valley. That's not how they build wealth. We're not going to conquer land to build wealth. The Democratic Party should offer a 21st century solution for economic security and independence across this country. I call it a new economic patriotism. I believe we need a Marshall Plan, not for Europe, we need a Marshall Plan for the United States of America. We should create a White House economic Development Council. Like Johnson, created an Office of Economic Opportunity to build the South. And we should involve everyone, not just government, not just people writing checks. We should involve the private sector. We should involve business leaders. We should involve faith leaders. We should involve community leaders. And we should work on the comprehensive economic development of every community in this country. Build 1,000 trade schools, finance new factories, recognize it's not going to only be manufacturing, it's also going to be needing to have AI academies and understanding that we will have healthcare jobs and education jobs and cosmetology jobs. And some communities may need a school, and other communities may need a road, and others may need a factory, and others may need a university, and others may need a venture fund. We don't know all the solutions, but we know that this is the problem that we're going to solve. And we're going to solve it together as Americans. We're going to inspire this country not for a movement to win votes or win an election. We're going to inspire it for a movement to build this country. That's what I think is not just the way the Democrats come back to power, it's the way we move this country forward. Isn't that the goal? Isn't that the vision? I mean, and I want to be a nation respected in the world. And I want to say a few words about foreign policy and then close with the two people I studied most, Lincoln and Douglas, and where I think that their words can still inspire this country. Foreign policy, people say foreign policy doesn't decide elections. But I'll tell you what does decide elections. How people feel that America acts in the world. We're a patriotic people. Yes, we vote our pocketbooks, but we also vote what our nation should be. People feel it's all transactional. Transactional at home, transactional abroad. You have Donald Trump standing with Putin, and they're all the commentators that Putin speak first, that Trump speak first. Who cares? Why did Trump simply not say that Putin, you're wrong? You can't just take land from another country because it's all transactional. When it comes to Gaza, a lack of moral clarity. We've given a blank check to Netanyahu. And it's led to a Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir and Smotrich trying to erase the Palestinian identity. So I recently said I was going to lead a letter to call for a Palestinian state. 20 of my colleagues have joined and others are joining. And some people started to attack me. And I said, this is not just about Palestine. This is not just about Israel. This is about our moral leadership to be constructive in getting to two states, a demilitarized Palestine with no Hamas, working with the 22 other Arab countries to work with peace and recognizing Israel as the Jewish democratic homeland. Our goal should be that we are the generation that helps bring peace in the Middle East. And the conditions are different than what Bill Clinton faced. You have 22 Arab countries now saying no Hamas. You have 22 Arab countries now saying we recognize Israel as a Jewish democratic homeland. You have young people saying it's time for a Palestinian state. The conditions are different. Jimmy Carter, who I was so proud, I got his statement of support because I happened to intern for him at 19 at the Carter Center. He once said at a church service, he said, it's great to be the strongest military in the world as a superpower. And it's wonderful to be the strongest economy as the world as a superpower. But you know what a real superpower would be? It would be a nation that other nations call to make peace. I want the American president to be the one receiving phone calls, to do the hard work, to make peace. Jake knows this. You can't just be an American president and say, okay, go bomb. That's easy. You know what was hard? Obama, with Jake and others, doing the Iran nuclear deal. That was hard. Diplomacy, statesmanship. That's hard. I want America to be respected again in the world as the moral leader of the world. I'll end with my two favorite speeches that should be part of the American canon, but are not. They're overlooked. Everyone reads Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Everyone reads Lincoln's second inaugural. At least I used to think that. Now, one of the things that horrifies me is students without enough American history. They say, Ro, you say they should learn AI. I said, I'd rather they just learn American history first. You know, that's probably more important. The AI will come. Lincoln in 1858 gave a speech on July 4th. And it's relevant because of what J.D. Vance has been going around saying these days. The hierarchy of Americans. Have you heard this speech? The amount of time you can trace your heritage back. So I've taken to doing this, and I always ask this, and there are always several people who raise their hands, and I'm hoping, and I'm sure in New Hampshire there are. How many people here, be proud if you and raise your hand, can trace their heritage back to the Revolutionary War? Let's give them a round of applause. And Lincoln had a challenge back in 1858. Because the challenge was to be an American. Back in 1858, you really had to have your heritage traced back to the Revolutionary War. How could you be an American if you didn't do what my grandfather did or did the Revolutionary did, fight the British? You know, there's a sentiment. This is what Trump and Vance are saying. Well, Rose family just got here. What did they build for America? Lincoln faced the same problem. And Lincoln said, because he had to figure out how could French Americans, German Americans be American, and he said, if you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in the Declaration of Independence, you are flesh of the flesh, blood of the blood of the American founders. And there's an electric cord that links your hearts to the hearts of the founders. My friends, today, the Democratic Party is the party of Abraham Lincoln. We are the party. We are the party that believes whether you are charisma or whether you are a son of immigrants or whether you trace your heritage back to the Revolutionary War, that if you believe in the principles of this country, you are American. And that's, by the way, what makes us exceptional. It's not, Vance goes on, what makes you a country is a history and a culture. Of course, that's what makes you a country, but what makes us exceptional is that we're a country dedicated to the proposition of liberty and equality. That's what's different. That's what's distinguishing. And Lincoln wondered whether it could long endure. It was so unique in the history of the world. I believe it will. And I believe our contribution to civilization will be becoming the first truly cohesive multiracial democracy in the world. And I'll end with this. Frederick Douglass in 1869, 20 years after being enslaved, did something that still needs to be done today. He spoke out and defended Chinese immigration. Back in 1869, as an enslaved, as someone just freed from being enslaved. And Douglass said, in this powerful moment, he said, in the free air of America, the best traditions will survive, and the worst will be discarded. And we will become a composite nation, a nation of all nations, a nation of people of all backgrounds. My friends, I believe that is our generation's destiny. Yes, we need to defeat Trump, but we need to do something bigger. If we build economic hope in the communities left out, if we show that modernity will work not just for my district, but for districts around this country, if we unite this country around the principles of the Declaration and the Constitution, then I believe our generation can be that generation that sees a composite nation, that sees America as a composite nation playing a role for justice and peace in the world. Let us begin that work. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.